We are in Studio 61. Happy to be joined once again by Jonathan DeCasanova of the Connecticut Blood Center to talk about a very important month for blood donation. It's National Blood Donor Month, right?
It is, and we're excited to celebrate those that have come out, not just for maybe one time, but for years. We have donors that have been regular donors of ours, and that's something to celebrate.
Yeah, I can imagine so. Now, why January? Is there any particular reason?
No, but let's just start off the year on a good note here and celebrate those donors.
Yeah, and the reason why I asked if there's anything particular in January, because just in talking with you a little bit before we went on the air, I feel like maybe this is the time of year when sometimes those reserves can get a little low. Why don't you just talk about the need in general?
Yeah, it's always difficult coming out of the holiday season in particular, just because we've got holidays on our mind and we might not put blood donation as a priority.
Yeah.
We're also entering winter. And so as the weather gets colder, we're all sort of hunkered in. Maybe those illnesses and viruses start to pick up in volume. And that, unfortunately, just suppresses that blood supply even further in terms of donors not necessarily making it out.
Yeah. Now, last time we talked to you, it was sometime last year, you were worried that there was, it seems like, unfortunately, there's always a shortage, but it was an especially big shortage. Where do we stand now? Like, how much do you have in the reserves?
Yeah, so unfortunately, we're back down to 2 to 3 days of blood supply. Ideally, we would have 5 to 7 days of blood supply. But yes, to your point, it's been a challenging few years here.
Yeah.
And, since the pandemic really happened, we really haven't had that consistent time of a stable blood supply. We're hoping for those days again, and that's why we're continuing to, work with as many community groups as possible to get the word out for how important, that blood supply is, because if we don't have it, then the hospitals don't have it, and then the patients can't get it.
Yeah, and it's just so critical. I liked what you were saying also right before we went on the air. Unfortunately, because we're always talking about shortages, it gets kind of negative, the discussion. It doesn't have to be. Talk to me about some of these people who just keep coming back over and over and over, what that means for your efforts and what it means for them, the people who are just dedicated to giving blood.
Yeah, I appreciate you touching base on this, because we don't want to make it, sound negative. There is so much positivity out there around blood donation. One thing in particular that we had recently implemented is a Thank the Donor program. And this is actually a system now where donors can actually be thanked by their recipients via a message or even a photo or video, which is pretty incredible and truly a positive, message, I think, to get out there to the community.
Yeah.
It's a connection that we were never able to sort of establish in the past, but now we can actually create that connection between donors and their recipients, which is great. I
got to imagine that's a great reason for people who have donated once to keep coming back. That's probably going to make a lot more repeat donors.
Absolutely. It's another touch point. We always say that our donors are heroes, but for them to now hear it, specifically from the patients that they are saving, is special.
All right. So if people want to donate, how can they do so? And even if they can't donate, there are ways they can help. How can they get in touch?
They can go to ctblood.org is the best way to see all of the aspects of how they can, support a blood center, whether that, as you mentioned, be blood donation or other ways in terms of volunteering. We're also looking for more groups to be willing to host blood drives as well.
ctblood.org.